BookTube, welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and so originally I was gonna wait to do this video, but I decided why not. And that is my goals video for 2025. I saw Murphy Napier do this video, and I know a lot of people are starting to do their end of the year tag. I don't know if I'll do that one or not, but I figure I'll go ahead and talk about my goals for this year, for 2025. I might save until like New Year's to talk about how my reading went this year, how my goals went this year. I mean, I don't know, I might just talk about it here. Yeah, I'll probably end up doing that because you guys know I ramble, so I'll probably end up doing it anyway here. So, for 2025 goals, it's not going to be that different. My goals don't really change all that much. Like occasionally they varied or I've added a new one. Like, you know, a couple years ago I had the whole wanting to focus more on nonfiction, and I think I've done decently on that one. Like in 2022, I read a lot of nonfiction even before Nonfiction November, because that was what I wanted to try to do, is even before Nonfiction November. This year, I don't know. I have to look at my Goodreads. I don't know if I have done as well. With nonfiction, I feel like I haven't read a lot lately, but I might have, more than I give myself credit for. I might have read at least one or two. I'm gonna have to double check. I do plan to participate. You know, it's October right now. October's almost over. Halloween will be here in a couple days. As I'm filming this, in fact, we're doing Oktoberfest or Booktoberfest, like the used bookstore that's within walking distance is doing a big thing, and my dad's gonna be there. He's gonna have a booth to sell his books, Shadows of Saigon by Mark R. Anderson, and Sage Among the Pines by Mark R. Anderson, in case you're interested. You can get them off of Amazon, or I think they sell them at Barnes & Noble, or you can get a Kindle copy. One, historical fiction. A young man is a Vietnam veteran, and well, he just has a heart attack, and he's remembering his high school years with his first girlfriend, and then going to the Vietnam War and finding his love. And then Sage Among the Pines is, after having problems with her, you know, her dad dies, he's a military guy, and then having problems with her mom, who has a drug overdose, she is sent to go live with her grandparents in North Carolina, and starts to form a relationship with her grandfather, becomes kind of a mentor to her, and grows up, receives life lessons from her grandfather and grandmother, goes horseback riding, and goes through the experiences of high school. So I hope you check those out. Anyway, back to my goals. So yeah, they do have Booktoberfest, which I think I might go. I'm debating because I don't want to be there all day. And I cannot drive the golf cart, so, and even if I could, I would have to come back and get my dad, so I might have to walk unless my mom doesn't get called in. So I'm still debating, but I'm also not a big fan of German food, and Oktoberfest is big on the German food. It's a German holiday, and it's not to my taste. They're the food, that kind of food. So, I mean, I do like brats. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy brats, but anyway. So, yeah, so there is that coming up. I mean, that is today. But anyway, so that means October's almost over, and November is coming up, and I will be participating in Nonfiction November. And I did pick out two books. One that's a little short, a book on Robin Williams, a biography on Robin Williams, which I was surprised how short it was. And then also the Rubicon, the Triumph and Tragedy of the Roman Republic. I know it's a long title, so I can never remember the exact title. So I'm going to read those for nonfiction November. But I want to, one of my goals that I had for 2023 that I want, or 2024 that I want in 2023, I want to continue into 2025 is reading more nonfiction and make it an irregular habit, because I think nonfiction does have some stuff to offer. Like, it just depends on the books you read. Like, not everything is like a textbook. Some of it's actually, nonfiction can be very engaging and when it comes to nonfiction, the obvious thing is to read something about a topic you actually are interested in and you're actually passionate about. That's how you get into nonfiction, in my opinion, is you read something that you care about. You're not unless you're in school, unless you're a student, you can choose what you want to read. Now, yeah, there's always the nonfiction could be seen as boring and have a dry writing style. There is always that concern, but not all nonfiction has a dry writing style. Some nonfiction can be really engaging, like especially like stuff like memoirs, because it's from that person. It's that person writing their story, or autobiographies. The person who it is about is writing their own stories, so they can have a very interesting and very engaging writing style, and they might have some really fun stories to tell you about their life. So yeah, not all nonfiction is dry. Some of it can be. I think it depends on the subject matter. In the writer, it's the same thing with fiction. The only difference is there's a lot more going. It's not just someone stating. The only difference between nonfiction and fiction is that it's not like nonfiction is someone stating facts and explaining something and tell you about something that actually is true, while fiction is a made-up story that's all about another world, or about a history that like could have happened but didn't, and is it's an adventure. It's there's romance, there's there's comedy, there's like it's about life, but it's not real life. Like you don't know if something like that could happen or not. But that fiction can also be dry too. So yeah, I want to make sure I get, and I have a lot of, I recently acquired, I did a book haul, I filmed it yesterday, where I showed that I got a Jefferson biography. And I still gotta finish my John Adams by David McCullough. I gotta finish that one, before I read, because I've acquired quite a few. Like, I have the Ben Franklin, I have Ron Chernow's biography of Hamilton, with on audiobook. I listened to that, and like I said, I think listening to that it's better to listen to it than read it, because it's a long book, and I know someone pointed out they felt like it was overwritten, and maybe I don't know personally if I agree with that, but I think it helps listening to an audiobook to make so it doesn't feel like it's overwritten, but maybe if you actually read it, it might come off that way. And they did recommend other biographies on Hamilton. I don't remember. I should have wrote them down, but now I don't remember, and I would have to go back through my comments and find them. That person's comment on it. So if that person's watching, maybe they can refresh my memory on those recommendations if they remember. And I have the Ben Franklin one, and now I have 2 books on Jefferson. One that is the American Sphinx, which is kind of a discussion on why people love Jefferson, why he has his own little fan club. And then the other one's the one I just bought is an actual biography. I have quite a lot of nonfiction, I just haven't gone through it all. And also sometimes there's some nonfiction like that's true crime fiction I think is really good, because it's like reading a novel, except it really did happen, sadly. So it's like a novel. It's like listening to a podcast, except for you're reading instead of listening. Unless, of course, you get on, a true crime in an audiobook format, which is basically a podcast. Well, although I guess it's not, because it's not like you're discussing it. But yeah, I think with some, which again, that to me that demonstrates that audiobooks are helpful. Can really be helpful with nonfiction. And so I think, but whether it's an audiobook or not, true crime is a little bit, I think, more engaging and less boring, because it's like telling a story. You're getting a narrative of this actual event. So it's told like fiction, and I think that can potentially help if you want to get into nonfiction. Like, maybe that's where you could start if you're trying to get into nonfiction and you're hesitant because of the potential dry writing style and everything. First of all, always make sure it's something that you really are genuinely interested in, and not feel like you have to read it just because, like, not because you feel obligated to read it, but because you actually are interested in the topic. But also maybe try a memoir or a true crime, because the way those are written can often make it a little bit easier to get into. So yeah, I still want to continue reading more nonfiction. I feel like I dropped the ball a little bit this year, and I can't recall. I might have read, I'm sure I read at least one or two nonfictions, and I did start reading the Federalist Papers, a handful of their essays. I haven't picked it up. I do need to come back to it, and I want to continue reading some more essays. Like, that's something I feel like you can get away with reading very slowly, because it's just a series of essays about the Constitution and defending it, and why it's important, and what it's saying, what its message is. Although, because it's written by lawyers, it's a lot of words, like, and you're like, okay, you don't have to say all that to get to the point of saying why the Constitution is important. But they really I guess they really had to defend it and really get into people's heads the importance of it and its message. And I do sometimes like the writing of older work. Anyway, so yeah, I cannot remember what other nonfiction which is saying something sadly, but I do want to get into more nonfiction. I want to continue that goal and continue to expand my nonfiction horizons. Also, I still want to continue reading, focusing on certain authors. Like last year, it's not the end of the year yet, it's in filming. So in 2024, back in January, I intended to focus on Anthony Trollope and Wilkie Collins. But I haven't done a lot of that. It was only, like, I tried to in the spring, summer, and that fell through a little bit. And so, but I finally came back to The Woman in White for Victober, and I'm very happy to say I finished it and I loved it. I had a good time with it. I have two more Wilkie Collins that I actually own. Unfortunately, the library does not. I don't recall seeing any other Wilkie Collins at the library, which is a little bit frustrating. But then again, his books are long. Although The Moonstone is not that long. So I want to come. So yeah, the library is not an option. And plus, I'm trying to read the books I own anyway instead of going to the library, because as I always say, when I get stuff from the library, I prioritize the library books so I can return them and I don't have to keep renewing it. Especially if it's a long book, and I would have to do that, and I don't want to have to do that. So right now, I just haven't had the opportunity to, decide to go to the library and start using it again, which it's been quite a few years now. And then I know that Trollope isn't there. Joanna Trollope is at the library. I might have seen one. I think Trollope, at least there was one Trollope book there at the library, but it's one that I've already read, so, and I own it, probably. But yeah, there was Joanna Trollope, who I don't know if she's the daughter or granddaughter of Trollope and Anthony Trollope, but I read that, and it's called The Joining, is the one book by hers, that I saw there. I don't know if there's any other Joanna Trollopes there, but yeah, there's no Anthony Trollope there, which is like I said, there might have been one. So yeah, that's not an option either. So, and I'm not, so I'm either gonna buy them or I'm gonna, and I don't know about Libby. I don't know if they have them on Libby, but now, unfortunately, with Wilkie Collins, I only have 2 that I own left to read: The Moonstone and Armadale. So I wonder, I'm not going to read either one of those until next year, the beginning of next year. So maybe I'll start The Moonstone in January. Or I will start The Moonstone in January. And then come back to, I don't know when I'll start Armadale, maybe in the spring or the summer. I'll see how I feel. And with Trollope, I have a little bit more to read that I own, which is I have one of his standalone books, which I can't remember the title. I still cannot remember the title. It's his big one. I don't know if it's the biggest one, but it is a brick of a book. I cannot remember what it's called. And then I have After Family Parsonage, which I'm currently reading. I haven't finished it yet, but it's not the end of the year, so I still have time. I have 3 more. I think there's 3 more, possibly 2 or 3 more from the Barshire series. And then the first book in the Palliser series. I do have that one as well. And I do have both authors, I have their books on my Amazon wishlist or my Thrift Books wishlist. So we will see where I go with those. But I do want to, next year I want to make sure I genuinely do focus on those authors and get more read by those authors. I don't want to neglect them again I feel like I did this year. Like, yes, as of right now, I have read The Woman in White, and I'm working my way through Family Parsonage, but I feel like I don't want to wait until next October to read books by them. I want to read them sooner in the year. And The Moonstone's not that long, so I'll probably, like I said, I'll probably pick up that one next by Collins. There's also some other authors that I do read more regularly that I want to pursue. In 2025, I want to do better at, and read them less sporadically and read them more regularly. That is Stephen King, Charles Dickens, Anne Rice, and I think that's all. Oh, and Brandon Sanderson. And that's all. Now, the problem is almost all those authors have really big books. Like, some of them have their shorter books. Like, Brandon Sanderson does have some YA, and Milgrave, which aren't as long as his adult books. And even there are some of his adult books that aren't that long. And then Stephen King does have some shorter works. Like, he has short stories, and he has a couple of novels that are a little bit shorter. Like, they're not as dense. They're under 300, or possibly, pages, I think. I have to double check on all of his books. Like, and I do think Carrie is one of his reads that you can get through faster that's not a short story, because of the format and the way it's written. It is written like the original media, which is a multimedia where it's not just, before the internet and social media, it was newspaper articles, microfilm, maybe TV interviews, and all that kind of stuff. And newspaper interviews and all that. So before the internet, because it came out in the 70s, so it's written kind of with that, but there's other, So I remember getting through that quickly, but I do want to reread that because I read that way before we came where we live now, way before we moved here. I read it. So I do want to reread that one again. Unfortunately, there's some Stephen King books that I'm still not sure if I'm comfortable with if I want to read them, like Cujo and the idea of a dog going crazy and getting rabies. As a dog person, I don't know if I can handle that. And then I don't know if I'd be interested in the Bill Hodges series. I keep saying no to that one too. But who knows? Maybe I will give it a shot. Like, never say never. And it's only 3 books. And then there is the Holly book that just came out. They do have the Institute is one of his shorter works, so that and I know that one's from the library, so when I finally go back to the library, I might get that. I mean, I really need to go back to the library, because there's the last book in the Caraval series, in the last book in the second trilogy is out. And then there's also, she's publishing a new book that I think it's going to come out in December. That's a Christmas book. December, November time is going to come out. And, so I feel like I should read the last book. Like I said, I haven't felt the good opportunity to go to the library. And I don't want to buy it because I already donated the other books. I don't have any more Caraval books, so, but anyway, and then there's, and Brandon there, like, and then Anne Rice, like, I've only finished one of her books, and that is Interview with the Vampire. I mean, well, actually two, technically, if you count the Sleeping Beauty trilogy, The Claiming of Sleeping Beauty. I did read that one, and then I started book 2, but then I couldn't do it anymore. I was like, I can't. And it's not even a book about social issues or anything. It's something that makes me really uncomfortable, and I was trying to see if I could read and prove to myself I could, and I couldn't, so I finally gave up. I was just more angry. The only reason I was keeping reading was I was going to see what was going to happen to the character, our protagonist, see if she was going to get out of the situation, and she doesn't really until the last book, so it's like, I can't do this anymore. And like I said, it's not even about social issues or anything. It's not a book that explores that. It's a book that explores something that I'm not comfortable with. You know, like I said, if you're into that, that's, fine, good for you. But for me personally, the Sleeping Beauty trilogy, or actually it's not a trilogy because she published the 4th book before she passed. But yeah, it's just, I'm not comfortable with it. We did buy for my grandma the one who read the Left Behind series, which I mentioned in my review for The Omen. And that was the only one that she's ever read, was the Left Behind series. I don't know the author's name. We got her the Anne Rice's 2 books, Christian books, that are about Christ, the birth of Christ, and Christ's life and everything, but she never read them. In fact, they were in a cabinet. So, and like I said, I don't think she would notice if those, my mom and I both agree, she probably wouldn't notice if those were gone, because I ended up taking them home with me. The way if something happened to like her jewelry or something, then that she would notice. But books, I don't think she would notice easily. So I ended up taking them home. And I'm debating if I want to read them or not. I might send them to, but I keep delaying by keeping them because there's always a possibility that she might notice. I mean, she probably won't, but you never know. And I don't know if I'll read them or not. I mean, I am a Christian. But I don't know. I might read them. But like I have some in the past I'm not interested, but that is kind of, changed a little bit, not much. Anyway, so there is that. I would be more likely to give those a shot than go back to the Sleeping Beauty trilogy, or not trilogy anymore. And then there's also, her Mayfair Witches, her Vampire Chronicles. I keep debating, that's another one that I keep debating if I want to continue pursuing, because I read Interview with the Vampire. And I think with that one I'd be a little more cool with having the rest of them on Kindle, if I got them off of Kindle, instead of owning all the books. I did buy off a thrift, one of my thrift books purchases is The Mummy, or Ramesses the Damned by Anne Rice, so I do have that one, and I did show that to you guys as a potential for November to read. So I might come back to that one. And that one is not as long. Like, The Witching Hour is a long book. It is super long. I did watch the first season of the show adaptation. Yes, there are definitely things that, that are not accurate to the book that I did notice, but I haven't finished the whole book to really notice anything else, except for a few things. But I'm also like, this is gonna happen, adaptations are not gonna be exact. The best you can do is either a decent adaptation that comes close and still stays true to the original gets as close as possible, or there's the one in them, or there's just ones that are really bad and completely off, and they're only similar in name. And I have to say, at least with the witching, the Mayfair witches, it's still the shadow of the story. It's not completely off, but I haven't read the whole book. And some people, and I don't know if it's just more that they're so passionate that anything that makes it different to them feels like it's not the same story, or maybe they're just exaggerating it, or if really they are right. I don't know. And you don't, if you are someone who watched the series and agrees that it's a bad adaptation, I'm not asking you to just tell me, explain to me why it's bad. This is not what this video is about. I'm just bringing it up because I did watch it and I personally liked it. Whether it's a good adaptation or a bad one, I don't know, because I haven't finished the whole book because it's a long one. So yeah, there are authors like I've heard of. I keep hearing a lot about Octavia Butler. I think I'm debating about checking her out or not. If I ever do go back to the library, maybe I'll borrow her from the library. But I keep thinking about it. Like, I don't know. She did write a vampire book, The Phalagine, and then she also wrote a time travel story they did attempt to adapt it, but that adaptation I don't think went well. I think it got canceled. Okay, that's embarrassing. Excuse me. Hope that didn't gross you guys out. I'm sorry. But anyway, so I have thought about checking her works out as well. I don't know who else, but anyway, so yeah, that's another thing I want to focus on more, certain authors a little bit more. Also, I want to, there's always the goal of, continuing making progress and finishing at least some of my big books. Books in my longer series, I want to make some progress. Even if I just read one book this year, like, I still have yet to read Shadow Rising, from the 4th book in the Wheel of Time series. I need to get to that one. And, and again, the Dark Tower series, Wizard in Glass, I need to get back to that one. So either by the end of the year, by this year, or next, like maybe at least by the end of the year, this year, maybe start reading those books again. Or just wait until next year and make sure I get to those books next year, starting in January. I want to get to those because I keep neglecting them, man. So I have those as well. So that's another thing. And then bigger books in general. Like, this year I did finally read and finish Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, which I'm proud about that. I don't know what other big books. That might be the biggest book I've read that I've finished. I mean, I guess The Woman in White is a big one that counts. I'm trying to think of what other ones. I can't think of any at the top of my head, but I'm sure I have. Sorry, I hate when you have those little itches that are like little random spots on your face. They're not even bad. They're not like, you're not desperate, but you can feel it a little bit. You can feel that little tingle, that little itching that you just want to scratch it. I'm sorry, I'm looking at my shelves and seeing if there's anything, but I don't see any of the ones I finished. I would have to come back. Also, I finally got Katie Lumsden's book, not the most recent one. She just published her first book. I finally bought that one this year, and I do want to get to that one before the end of the year, so that is one of my November possibilities. And then there's also, like, Homecoming, which is the latest Kate Moore book that I finally bought as well. That I need to get to. Like, I don't know, I enjoy Kate Morden's reading. I love her stories. I just don't always buy the books right away. First, I wait until they come out in paperback, because all my other books from her books are in paperback, so I wait. And then, like, I take forever for me to buy them because I'm all about the fantasy. Or there's, like, a literature or horror book. Which, speaking of horror, I feel like is the one book category that I have done well with. that I've made a lot of progress with, because I've been expanding. Like, I just did a review after I finished The Omen this morning, and I feel like that's the one genre that I've done really well with. And I did buy some on Kindle, like the Blackwater Saga, I think it's called. It was recommended by Mike from Mike's Book Reviews. I just bought that one on Kindle. And I'm trying to think of if there's any other. Let me see. Are there any other? I did do a video where I read to you guys The Tall Tale Heart. I read that one. I did read, well, I mean, this is not a horror book, but I did read the spell book of Katrina Van Tassel, which is a retelling of a classic ghost story. So, and it does have some ghost story elements. Okay, sorry, I have to. I also have the We Are the Dead, which that was considered horror, but I don't know if it is. It sounds more like, by the description, it sounds more like fantasy, but maybe there's zombies in there or something. I don't know. I don't know why that's considered horror. I did decide, I did finally make a Excel chart. I cannot remember what those are called. What those would be called. Those, the Excel documents where is, and I did one of those to, organize my Stephen King, like write down all the Stephen King books, and kind of organize it so that I can mark which ones I read, and try to keep in mind what I do need to read and what I want to reread by Stephen King, to keep myself a little more organized. The problem having a Word documents on my computer is that I don't open them up every day. I don't look at them every day. So if it's not in front of my face, then I'm not gonna remember it. So I'm thinking, I wonder if I need to write it down as well. It's just I'm also lazy, and as much as I like writing, but it's a lot to write. I don't like writing these titles, and the pages won't stay open on my Stephen King universe book that has the list of all and talks about all the stories and how they're interconnected and stuff. It doesn't stay flat because it's not a hardback book. I did add some books to my nonfiction. So I haven't read a lot of nonfiction this year, but I did add some. The Letters of Tolkien, and then there's one more that I have. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe it's only Letters from Tolkien that I bought. But anyway, and that was kind of a big book, but that's also letters. So, and there's also books like Paradise Lost and the Divine Comedy that I want to read as well. That it's more like, they don't look that big, but because they're epic poems, but they do present a different kind of challenge. Which brings me to another thing I want to try in 2025, and that is not like kind of like intensive reading, but my own a self-taught intensive reading. Like, I recently this one channel that I watched on and off, like I've seen all of his videos. He does a lot of video essays. Robin Waldron. He is a student currently, I think, and he does a lot of video essays talking about English literature and how times have changed and how we feel about English literature. And he did a video on why students have a hard time sticking to a longer text, because in school we're reading, when you're in school, you're reading shorter works, and the priority is getting them read so that you can pass the test, so you can get a grade. Like, that's more of the focus, like getting it done in a certain amount of time frame, so maybe you can discuss it. But I remember I took a British literature class, and we read 3 books, within that class. And the one that we spent the longest on was Canterbury Tales, and I wanted to get to Hamlet by Shakespeare. We did that last. We just rushed because we spent so much time on Canterbury Tales. We rushed it, so I was kind of annoyed about that. It was like resented Canterbury Tales. So I was like, I'm not gonna ever read that book because it came before. We didn't get to Hamilton because of that book. Although recently I did finally decide to buy and giving it a reread because I actually some of the stories were funny. You know, it is a funny book. I have a weird relationship with humor books, ones that are meant to be funny. Like, I've tried them and just not, they don't always work for me. But I'm gonna give this one another shot because I do, and they're a bunch of short stories. It's not one long novel. It's a bunch of stories that these people are telling as they're making a long trek to Canterbury, and they're telling all these stories. And funny enough, there was supposed to be a part 2 when they go back, but it was never written. I don't think it ever got published, part 2. So there would have been more stories. It's kind of sad if you think about it. But we actually did spend a lot of time with that one. And I did make the mistake of not reading one of the stories. I remember, which it was the Lady of Bath or something. I think that was her name. I think that's what it was called. I would have to look, and it's on my shelf somewhere, so I'm not going to get up and get it. But I made the mistake of like, I'm not going to read it. I don't need to read it. It'll be fine. And then the next day we had pop quiz on that story. So my advice is don't skip. Don't skip anything. I know it's boring. It can be boring and hard to read, and you might just not want to do it. But you know what? There might be a surprise pop quiz the next day in your class. And I, failed that test, and I regret it to this day. I mean, I still got a passing grade and still got a B or an A in the class, and that's fine. And it really, at the end of the day, it was just a class I decided to take, so it didn't count for a lot for me, because I already graduated from community college before I moved here, so I wasn't going back to school trying. I just wanted to take a class to do something, have something to do. So yeah, so if you are doing this for an actual grade, if it actually counts, don't skip. I'm sorry to sound all preaching or lecturing or anything, but it's, you might, unless you are just so smart that you can get away with skipping and still do really well and really be able to pass the test, don't skip. That's all I'm saying. I'm sorry, but don't skip. Okay, now I'm done. Anyway, so I am going to reread it, Canterbury Tales, and give it another shot. Because, I was probably being unfair to it. I was punishing it just because I was bitter that we didn't get to Hamlet. I mean, we did end up reading it, but we rushed through it, and our last test was based on Hamlet, and I probably did really well, but it we didn't really get to talk about it, and, and I'm still kind of annoyed at that teacher because I was like, I decided to, and I think maybe she thought I was being funny and silly and not taking it seriously, but I was like, well, the closest I got to Hamlet was watching The Lion King, which, yeah, Lion King is based on Hamlet. She was like, well, that doesn't count, or that's not Hamlet, that has nothing to do with Hamlet. I was like, well, yeah, it kind of does, because it was inspired by Hamlet. I mean, I didn't say that, but I'm still kind of annoyed by it. I'm still, to this day, I'm obviously bitter about that. Kind of like, but I don't know, maybe she thought I was being dismissive and not taking it seriously, which is BS, because I do take reading seriously. But it doesn't matter. Anyway. So, I bring that up because, like I said, this Robin guy took a class that was on intensive reading, where he read, the class would read one book for a whole month, only that book, and then every day they would go into class and talk about that one book. And the book they were reading was Ulysses, and you had to finish that. And which is interesting, because I do struggle with Ulysses, because the writing style is it changes all the time, and a lot of people, I think, are probably bitter against having to read that novel and are like, oh, James Joyce was just messing with us and all that. And he was trying a little too hard he was arrogant and trying so hard to be like, look at me, I'm cool and all that. And, like, I think a lot of people have that mentality on James Joyce's Ulysses. And, I find, I'm like, a lot of people love that book. It's a polarizing book because you have half the audience who is dismissive of the book and thinks James Joyce is just being arrogant and messing with us, and then there's other people that obviously love that book. And it sounds like that book does have a lot to offer. And I do like the Odyssey, which that was inspired by the Odyssey. And it just sounds so interesting. And I can't remember who it was, whoever you are, please comment. I know one of you that watches my channel had talked to me and told me, oh, you should give it another shot. It has so much to offer, and was giving me ideas on how to read it. So I still am interested. I still have the book, and I still want to try it again. But anyway, I bring that up because, like I said, that's the book of the day we're reading, and I want to try that. I mean, I'm not a student, and I don't want to put pressure on myself because I'm not graded. There's no one holding me accountable. I'm only holding myself accountable. And I want to pursue being more focused. I mean, the hardest part is I have so many books on my shelf that I'm looking at. I want to read that one. I want to read that one. I'm always, I can't narrow it down because I'm a very indecisive person. Even when we go visit family, I have a hard time deciding which books I want to bring with me. And I try to put them back on the, I won't get to the point, I'll have them, it will be a cycle where I'll pull out a bunch of books, have them on the floor and be like, oh, I'll narrow these down. And I can't narrow them down, or I do like maybe a little bit, like narrow down by getting rid of a couple of them. And then I feel guilty because I'm like, I should prioritize those books. And then I end up bringing 3 or 4 books with me anyway, if we go out of town. And I don't get to all of them, I just dip my toes in each of them. So it's just very hard. And I keep saying, oh, I should narrow it down to just 2 or 3 books, and it never happens. Knock on wood. Which, in 2025, I would like to try that, but I don't know if that will happen because I am an indecisive person. I can't make a decision. But I want to try it. I want to, try to focus on one book. Or maybe at least bring one long book and then 2 shorter ones, or ones that are more fun. And then, of course, there's situations where, whether it's my grandma or my sisters, there's a lot of distractions. And I can't always focus. Like, when I got my grandma's, there's really no comfortable place for me to read. And then going to my sisters, there's the kids, and then I'm trying to, I have to decide between, because I'm very limited, because we got to pick them up, and, during the summer, they're with us all the time. They're not in school anymore, and then there's all these activities that they do, and, I'm visiting to spend time with them. That's why I'm there, to spend time with them and to help my mom take care of them. My mom and my sister. And so there's distractions there, and then maybe, with my grandma's, there might be less distractions, but there's still no comfortable place to read. And then the Fox News is on 24/7 at my grandma's house. And I can't, go up to the bonus room without explaining to people that that's where I went. And but although lately I have tried going to the, I don't know, I always get the living room and the family room mixed up. I think the living room is the one where we have the TV, and then the family room is the one where it's just the setup of all the furniture you can sit, and the piano used to be in there, but my sister got the piano. They gave it to her. I think that's where the family sits and talks to each other. I think that's the family room. So sometimes I potentially can go in there, but the lighting is not that great in there. I mean, even though, yeah, she does had the walls painted white, the panels, so that wouldn't be so dark. But then there's all, the lighting isn't great, basically. And there's no windows in there, because it's kind of in the middle of the house. So there's no, like, window to see through, to get some light in there. Except for there's, like, the front door, and that shows a little bit of light, but it doesn't reach the family room. So yeah, it's kind of hard for me to read when we go on trips, but I do try to manage to bring books. And then, of course, because I don't want to hear Fox News all the time, I try to turn on, my computer to watch videos so that I don't have to hear, so I can tune out Fox News. And then that prevents me from being motivated to read, because I get caught up in a video. So yeah, I mean, it's hard to make a decision on what books to focus on, but I do want to try. And like, it's probably not going to go very well. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I should be more optimistic and hopeful and just motivate myself to try. And do more than just try. Actually do it. Like I said, it's very hard. I mean, I almost wish that I could, like, do a, buddy read, like, with my dad, because he's here. He's in the house. He's with me. I mean, I appreciate if you guys offered to do a buddy read, but you're also not in my presence. You're just watching me from a distance. So it's like, and I can't expect you guys to hold me accountable for this. I should hold myself accountable. Of course, I'm not going to punish myself if I don't follow through. But I almost wish I could do buddy read with my dad, but he's not going to be interested, and because he has his other hobbies, he writes his own books. He writes books. Shameless plug. My dad's books are Shadows of Saigon by Mark R. Anderson and Sage Among the Pines. Mark R. Anderson. You can find them on Amazon. Or on, I think Barnes & Noble has them as well. Sage Among the Pines is a coming-of-age story about this young girl who ends up moving in with her grandparents and has life lessons, and there is a very complicated relationship with her mom, and then there's also his first book. I just said it, and now I can't think of what it's called. Not Sage Among the Pines is the other book. I just said it, and now I cannot remember what I said. What the book is called. What is it? I mean, I literally just said it and just totally slipped my mind. His other book, what is it? I don't remember what it's called. But his other book is a Vietnam War story. This, a young man he's an old man at the beginning of the story, and he has a heart attack, and he looks back on while he's under anesthesia, he's looking back on his life from his high school years with his first girlfriend all the way to when he goes to Vietnam and meets the love of his life. So there's romance in the story. Like I said, it's a Vietnam War story. Shadows of Saigon, that's what it's called. Shadows of Saigon. I think there's another book called Shadows of Saigon that you can find on Amazon, but my dad's Shadows of Saigon. It's a yellow book with a woman on the cover, a Vietnamese woman, or that's what she's meant to be, and wearing a red dress, in case you get it mixed up. Mark R. Anderson. If you're interested, please check it out. I really hope you show it. Anyway, so sorry I keep getting off of track, but basically, long story short, I want to try that. I want to try to focus on books, my longer books. I do like what he said, which is, in the morning, read something that's a little more challenging when you're awake and alert and you're drinking coffee and you're energized, and then when you're going to bed, read something that's a little more fun and easygoing that you can it'll be okay if you fall asleep. You don't have to concentrate too much on it. And also, like, when it comes to in the morning, also it's okay if you only read. He also talked about how it's okay if you only read a little bit, just as long as you're reading a little bit. But that can be more for people who want to get into reading, which I do watch those videos, even though I am an avid reader. I do still enjoy watching those videos, the tips and stuff and discussions on how you can read more. I find them really fun. And sometimes I like the idea of applying some of those tips to my life, even though I don't need to, because I am an active reader. I don't have a problem with reading. And I already bring a book with me everywhere. And I did buy a Kindle so that when I go traveling, particularly if I go traveling long distances, and we're riding on a plane or something, I can just bring the Kindle. But so yeah, I don't have a problem with the reading. It's just I kind of like watching them. I like seeing their tips and suggestions. It's fun. Anyway, so is there anything else? And again, I think that's, and well, I mean, of course, also I want to read one classic every month. I want to make sure I do that as well. I mean, I'm already good classics and everything, but I just want to, I always have this idea of reading one book from each of these categories. One classic, and one horror book, and one fantasy, one historical fiction, one nonfiction, and one book by this author, and one book by this author, or, one book off of my Kindle, and, I keep one audiobook. But again, another thing is I'm not very good with that because I end up wanting to read more fantasy or more horror or more, more historical fiction, which I know I don't have to do that, but I feel like it's a good way to make sure to persuade myself to make sure I cover all my bases when it comes to literature of the stuff I'm interested in, the categories I'm into. Because like I said, sci-fi and romance, with romance, I just want to watch a romance. I'm not, I will still read some romances, obviously, but oftentimes, especially the more modern romances, the more contemporary stories, I'd rather just watch a movie, like a rom-com or something. And it's not my first choice of book to read. And then as far as sci-fi goes, I really struggle with that because I have a hard time with the more hard sci-fi stuff. I mean, I still keep trying. I tried the children something. What is it called? The one with the spiders. That it was a series. I tried reading that and I just couldn't get into it. I attempted it, but it was just the hard science was a little too much and very confusing, hard to follow, and I just wasn't into it. So I mean, I keep trying. I tried Dune. I liked the first Dune book, and Dune Messiah was kind of cool, a cool story. But Children of Dune, I mean, I got pretty far into Children of Dune, but after I just couldn't finish it, and I just rather watch the movie if there is a movie adaptation of Children of Dune. I mean, I know there's an old miniseries adaptation, but going by the present series, if they continue and make Dune Messiah and Children of Dune, then I might still watch those, even though I didn't complete Children of Dune. And I only read Dune Messiah. I'll probably still watch the movie adaptation if they make it. But yeah, hard science fiction is just I prefer the lighter. I really like time travel stories because they're a little more, they often involve traveling to the past, and that makes it easier for me to get into the story because it isn't so focused on the science part. In the beginning, it might in timeline it has the science part, but throughout the rest of the movie, they have gone into the past and are dealing with history and adapting to this history and everything and trying to survive. That I can get into. And Jurassic Park was kind of fun too. I liked that one because it kind of had a fantasy feel to it with them bringing these dinosaurs back to life and recreating the dinosaur era. That was a really fun premise. That is also what are you guys doing? Why do you keep making this mistake? You're dumb. You realize that these animals are wild animals from a different time. They're big and dangerous and vicious. You can't bring these back. They're too wild. But it's always fun. It's fun to read and fun to watch the movie adaptations. Now No, I haven't read any of the other books. I've only read the first book, the original Jurassic Park, and then I've watched adaptations. I haven't read the rest of the series. So yeah, I want to, continue to prioritize all the different categories I like in books and make sure I read them. And that's why I try to be like one nonfiction, one horror, one fantasy, one historical fiction. Like, I feel like I want to read one of each category in one classic. And I said category because classic is not a genre. So, that I can cover all my bases each month. And I think because I don't hold myself accountable for it all the time, I don't fall through with it because I'm like, oh, no, don't worry about it. I'm not being graded on this or anything. And I'm not going to get punished if I don't. So, yeah, it doesn't matter, but for part of me, it does matter because I want to cover all these categories. So that's what I'm continuing to try to do. The problem is I have a whole bunch of these books out here. I mean, this. But yeah, so I need to reorganize these a little bit better so that maybe I can try to do that. And because I think I need to start that right away, even though it's not 2025 yet as I'm filming this. I think I need to start that sooner rather than later. But it's not gonna. I don't know if it will go well or not. Or at least make sure I read each of the books are different from each other. That should help too. So, alright for all the rambling and getting off topic as usual. So that's just me talking about what my hopes for 2025. I mean, I really feel like I should just say my hopes or my intentions instead of goals. Because my thoughts are very disorganized in this video. And I don't know, maybe trying to make them goals is putting me off my game a little bit and putting pressure on me, and then I'm thinking, oh, I'm not gonna worry about it. And no one, it's only myself holding me accountable, and I think that can be a problem. Not that I expect anyone else to hold me accountable, but that allows me to get away with not being as, as active in prioritizing these things. So I'm hoping to change that in 2025. And I think I need to start that in November. Anyway, have you guys thought about your goals yet? Maybe you haven't, or maybe you don't have goals at all. But or maybe you could just tell me what your hopes for next year. I'd love to know what those are. I mean, like I said, unless you don't have them, right? At least not right now, or don't intend to have them in the future. But if you do, I would love to know what they are. And I hope you are enjoying your reading. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Click subscribe if you haven't. And click the bell notification button below if you want to be notified about my latest videos. And I will talk to you all later. Alright, bye!